Will attempting to solve a mystery involving the Rhino cost Peter Parker his very mind? Well, let's hop into the pages of Amazing Spider-Man issue number 2 and find out together, shall we? So then, picking up directly from where the last issue had left off, Spider-Man had gone to the apartment of his longtime foe, the Rhino, in an attempt to find clues about a rampage that the Rhino perpetrated just a few days ago, and why, yes, everyone agreed with me, his apartment did look like Jerry's from Seinfeld. Hell, Cracked, remember them, the comedy website? They wrote a whole article about it, but I digress. Spider-Man isn't in the Rhino's apartment for long before he ends up completely tripping balls, seeing horrifying crimson visions of all his old foes attempting to gang up on him. In his internal monologue, Peter talks about a recurring nightmare he's had before about all the people of New York he tries to save shrinking and turning into sand, before eventually hopelessly falling through his very fingers, a fear and feeling that he has a lot right now. Of course, these visions are just that, visions. And in reality, Spider-Man is just tripping balls around Harlem, throwing cars and getting into scrapes with the cops. In fact, this mystery bender is so bad, Peter only ends up coming to at work the next day as he has zoned out while listening to his brand new boss, the same one that he had to run out on last issue. Yeah, needless to say, Peter isn't exactly making a great first impression over at Rand, even though the company does seem to be doing some important humanitarian work when it comes to their scientific advancements. Luckily, Brian Nearing, Pete's old friend from childhood and the one who got him the job, is actually there to step on in and cover for him once again. What a nice guy, right? Hey, what does he actually do for Rand, you might be wondering? Well, it turns out he's actually involved in mushroom science, specifically trying to create a self-healing fungus that might be able to fix power cables out there in the wild. And hey, you know what else mushrooms do on top of fix cables? They can get you pretty damn high and make you hallucinate if you take the magic kind, but I'm sure that won't be important later or anything. Peter decides to take a break from this mania-induced panic attack and go to the roof to catch some air, only it's there he ends up coming under attack by the Green Goblin. Of course, once again, this is only a hallucination. The Green Goblin isn't actually there, but Norman is. In fact, Norman looked Peter up because he was so worried after seeing the footage of him going absolutely nuts in Harlem, and because of that, he's decided to take Peter away from work so they can run some important tests on him. Now, from there we transition on over to the Food and Drug Administration building. Alright, it's here we see Hobgoblin. Well, actually, we don't actually see him directly, but we see his very specific shoes, as Kingsley takes a meeting with the person who drugged Spider-Man. Apparently, they were also supposed to kill him once he started freaking out, but it seems that this new would-be evildoer isn't exactly great at following instructions, and as such, Hobgoblin makes himself very clear to finish the job this time or don't bother coming back at all. And then he just blows up the damn FDA building. Seriously, what is Kingsley's beef with this governmental agency? Don't tell me on top of everything else he's also one of those dudes who's all obsessed with food dyes and shit. Now back over with Peter, Norman finishes his test and comes to the conclusion that Spider-Man's blood has been laced with several pharmacies worth of high-powered hallucinogens. And chances are the very same thing happened to the Rhino, which would explain his impromptu rampage from the first issue. Norman has done everything he can to try and flush Peter's system, but unfortunately, like a lot of bad trips, man, you just gotta ride it to the end. Also, if you're still surprised to see them running with helpful good guy Norman all this time later, you might be happy to discover that in this very same issue, while Norman is talking, we see little internal monologues spoken by the Green Goblin, implying that maybe Norman's darker half is readying for another return, even though if you read that last Wells arc, you'll know that Norman was purged of his sins once again, but I get the sneaking suspicion that Joe Kelly didn't read any of that. And because the Green Goblin is bound to return one day anyway, editorial didn't bother to step on in and correct him. Now, with very few other leads to follow up on, Spider-Man decides that the only way he's going to get to the bottom of this case is if he's actually able to talk to the Rhino himself. Unfortunately, Alexei is currently locked up in Ravencroft Asylum, probably the last place you want to be when you're having regular breaks from reality. Thankfully, though, Peter has an in at the asylum in the form of his girlfriend Shay, though granted, Shay still doesn't know that Peter and Spider-Man are the same person and is only doing a Spidey a favor to pay him back for helping her with Aunt Anna back in the Wells run. Yeah, I'm surprised to hear them reference that too, but here we are. Poor Spider-Man doesn't even end up making it to Rhino's cell before he ends up having another audio-visual break from reality. In this case, he's reminded of the day that the police were actually called on him and Brian for doing some sort of childish mischief that went way too far. We actually see Uncle Ben and Aunt May really mad at Peter in a way that we don't normally get to see. We also learned that Peter and Brian weren't alone that day. Apparently they were part of a group of boys who called themselves, get this, the Freaktastic Four. That really is the perfect kind of so lame it's adorable, isn't it? Furthermore, Shay actually reminds me why I like her as a supporting character, because she works with crazy people every day and she fully realizes that Spider-Man is losing his goddamn mind right now and that she probably shouldn't take him any further into the asylum. But when Rhino's cell ends up coming under attack and a bunch of the security guards are struck dead, it looks like this is going to be a job for Spider-Man, but who is exactly trying to get to Rhino first? Well, it turns out it's Itsy Bitsy, the daughter of Spider-Man. Okay, some of you have no idea who this character is, and I can't blame you. She's an original creation from Joe Kelly's Deadpool Spider-Man run. She was a former drug abuser named Susan Mary, get it, Mary Sue, who made a deal with Mephisto and ended up getting spliced with DNA from both Deadpool and Spider-Man, giving her powers similar to both. And now, because of that, she says that she is the daughter of both Spider-Man and Deadpool. It's a whole thing. And it's on that note there the comic comes to a close, everybody. And so that was Amazing Spider-Man issue number 2. And overall, I thought this issue was fine. Didn't particularly knock my socks off, but hey, 2 issues of consistent quality for the Amazing Spider-Man book is something that probably should be celebrated in this modern era. Furthermore, when I heard Joe Kelly was taking the reins of the new Amazing Spider-Man book, I literally made a bet with myself saying how long is it going to be before he starts working in his original creations from that Spider-Man Deadpool book, and the answer is 2 issues. Which of course makes the whole media blitz around this book, which is the same media blitz they always do when they restart Spider-Man, of how this is going to be a back-to-basics classic take on the character. Even funnier in retrospect. I also don't know exactly how I feel about this secret untold era in Peter Parker's life when he was kind of a bad kid hanging out with a bunch of delinquents. I mean, it could have happened. I certainly think we all have a time in our lives where we're maybe hanging out with kids who are bad influences on us, but when it comes to a character like Peter, whose life has been so thoroughly told from beginning to end, I just don't know where any of it is supposed to fit in. But then again, this isn't even a uniquely Joe Kelly or even uniquely Spider-Man thing when we really break it down like a fraction. Overall, I think I'd feel comfortable giving this one a 7 out of 10. It was pretty okay. And you know what? I get the strong sensation that after several big runs crashed and burned super hard, that's really what Marvel is after right now. Consistently okay. Not great, not reinventing the wheel, not boundary breaking, but, you know, a book that doesn't make it feel like they just stole money from your wallet every time you read it. Hey there everyone, it's your pal Cape Joel again, and if you're seeing my face right now, that means you watched to the end of the video, and I'll always be grateful for that. Retention helps in this crazy YouTube game, and so does becoming a patron. If you head on down to the description, you can find a link to my Patreon page. Recently just redid all the tiers, a lot of cool stuff offering up there, exclusive commentaries, exclusive polls, behind the scenes concept art for Capes and Quest, that's the brand new D&D show I've started soon. Never been a better time to become a patron. You can become a patron for as little as $1 a month and help the channel grow and, you know, help me continue to deliver content like what you just saw. So I want to thank you all, and I will see you again next time. Bye-bye.